Thanks so much for the time. Thanks for your thoughtful questions, and thanks for seeing me in Austin city limits.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm Pepper from Mexico City, huge fan here. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to talk about your new album, your music, your career, about everything a little bit. Are you ready?
Yeah, almost ready. Let me just getting a bunch of notifications.
What's up with Nurture? What a beautiful album. I believe that's the word I like the most to define it, beautiful. It's like a celebration of life, but how was that musical evolution to pose EDM years ago and develop this new sound?
I think the way that the change in sound began was that with my previous works, like my previous EDM stuff and worlds, I felt like the sense of beauty and the sense of emotion came from this feeling of like wanting to escape into a fantasy world, like something that felt really far away. And I felt like it would be an interesting new perspective to write music from the perspective of like what's beautiful about reality, like what are the things about the world that's already close to us that we can find beauty in. So that was huge for me. It was like trying, in terms of the sound, trying to make it feel like the sounds are more close by and not so far away. So like that kind of meant like using less synthesizers, more sampled pianos, because these things feel intimate, like more samples, more pianos, stuff like acoustic guitars, human voice, all those things. Yeah.
So yes, your sound changed a lot from Worlds in 2014 to Nurture this year. But what were your learnings in those 7 years between those two albums?
The biggest thing that I needed to learn, I think, there were multiple lessons I needed to learn, I guess, because one, I was very stuck in my ways of making music, and I was putting a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation on myself after Worlds. Like, I thought I should be able to just go back into the studio and come up with something else that was going to be great right away. And I was, at first I started trying to write this music and I couldn't come up with anything good. What I should have done at that point would be to go find some new inspiration, like go see the world, listen to new music, like have some new life experiences. But instead I did the opposite. Like, I was so hard on myself. I thought, I'm not working hard enough, so I need to spend more time in the studio. But it's like trying to drive a car with no gasoline or something like that. Like I was going nowhere. So that was one big lesson, was that like I learned that I needed to cultivate inspiration and make an effort to find inspiration and make an effort to love new things. That's a big thing for me. And the second thing was that I knew I wanted to sing on this album and write all the lyrics, but I just wasn't that good at it yet. Like, that's part of the reason the album took 7 years, is because I needed to improve at songwriting, and I needed to get better at writing choruses. Like, if you think about it, I had been making music for like 10 years when I wrote Worlds, but I never really wrote a chorus. I was writing like drops, and I didn't know how to write like a chorus that people will want to sing along to. So in a lot of ways I felt like I was starting from zero. So that's another thing. I just had to improve at writing music in a different way. So that's part of why it took time.
Oh, what a beautiful answer, man. And speaking of inspiration, there's a lot of Japanese elements that come through in Nurture. You recently talked about how most of the music you listen to is Japanese. How did you find that balance between those two very different musical cultural currents to produce your music? I mean, between Japanese and American music.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I wanted to take inspiration from some of the Japanese elements and Japanese music that I love so much in ways that weren't as obvious as like using open references to anime or like using Japanese language stuff. Like I think in the past that's how I was making those references, but with this album I was learning a lot about how, like, it's not even like my goal was to express Japanese influences. It just happened naturally because so much of the music that I love is Japanese. So it's almost like the other way around. It's like I'm looking for things that I love and songs that really make me feel something. And a lot of the music that I love happens to be Japanese pop music. I've often thought about why is that? Like, why do I love this stuff so much? It might be because I think I kind of anchored on Japanese media when I was really young in video games. Like I was playing Nintendo and Dance Dance Revolution, so a lot of the first things I loved were cultural exports from Japan. So I've often wondered why has this come up for me again and again? Yeah, so I was sort of studying the chords of a lot of Japanese popular music, and I was definitely trying to write music that made me feel the way my favorite songs make me feel. So yeah, it's like the way that I relate to my favorite movies or favorite music, favorite art. When I love something so much, it's like a flame, and I want to get closer to it. I want to somehow get closer and closer to the feeling of this art that I love so much. And the best way for me to get closer is to somehow live it and express it in my own music. The calling that I feel to do that is so strong. Like when I love something, I just need to get closer. And like that's part of how I think I can express my love for that music too, is through, it's been cool because this album is doing a lot better in Japan than any of my other previous music, so I feel kind of accepted in that way. I'm like, oh, okay, you guys like it too.
so tell me, you talk about a little bit about anime. Tell me a little bit about the remixes of Get Your Wish and how perfect is Anna Managuchi's remix of Get Your Wish. It's like, man, it blew my mind. So what was your mind the first time you listened to it, the Anna Managuchi remix about Get Your Wish?
What's funny about the Anna Managuchi remix of Get Your Wish is that one of the very first versions of Get Your Wish that I wrote had a kind of similar thing where it had the double time drums where it goes, and I was like, I almost included that as the third chorus for Get Your Wish, but I never showed it to anybody. I didn't show it to them. And then Pete from Anna Managuchi asked to do a remix, and I was like, oh my God, I love Anna Managuchi, please. And then what they sent back had that same drum feeling, and I was like, you guys did it so much better than I would ever do it. It was just a total parallel thought thing. And also, like, their remix had so many really cool ideas that I would never have thought of as well. Like the beginning, they do it with the like sort of sound font sounds, the dun 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 dun, and then the guitar parts are just so good. And yeah, I love Anna Managuchi. They're some of my favorite musicians, and yeah, that remix really blew my mind. I remember texting Pete, who's again, you know, he's a member of Anna Managuchi, and being like, you guys killed this is amazing. And yeah,
wow, what a remix. And I have to ask, will there be an album of remixes of Nurture, just like there was in Worlds?
I you know, I've thought about it. With Worlds, it was a natural fit, I guess, because I wanted to, there were all these different cool things happening in electronic music at that time, and I wanted to bring them into the world of Worlds. With Nurture, initially I thought, like, I don't want to do any remixes for Nurture, but then my friends keep sending me stuff that's so cool. I'm like, oh, we have to put it out. So it's my plan is no, but who knows what will happen.
There's a girl on the web called Jenny Hughes that make piano covers of almost of your songs, and not only covers, but she also reharmonized them, your songs. I recently saw that you commented on one of her videos. So how do you feel watching hundreds of people making covers of these songs that are so personal for you?
Oh, it's amazing. And yeah, I'm going to mispronounce her channel name, but I think it's like Kaude or Gaude,
something like that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing because like I often think about, you know, if I'm spending like 100 hours or 200 hours on one song, eventually it becomes really difficult to even understand what it sounds like in the end for me. It's like when you say the same word over and over and over and it stops sounding like a word. If you say the words like candle, 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 eventually it stops sounding like it has meaning. It just sounds like a sound. It can be that way with making music too, where if you work on something for like 300 hours, you lose perspective on what it truly sounds like. So I really love hearing people's covers because it tells me these are the elements that they picked up on. This is what they're hearing. When they either reharmonize it, or sometimes they heard the chord a bit differently, or they heard a melody a little differently than how I heard it. Like, for example, I hear "Get Your Wish," da 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 da, but some people hear da da da. They don't hear the da da da. They hear da da da. Maybe that sounds the same to most people, but I'm like, oh, okay, like that's how my song sounds to you. So it's interesting. It makes me feel like I can hear my own music for the first time again. So it's a great feeling, yeah.
A few days ago, you had a very deep conversation with Jacob Collier on Instagram Live. It was a huge surprise for a lot of us to see you both on streaming together, you know. But also it was surprising to hear the news that he's going to be in the next edition of Second Sky.
Yes.
Is there a chance we might someday see a collaboration between you two guys?
I love Jacob's music. See, the thing is, with Jacob, it's obvious to anybody who who's watched him work that he's a very, very talented and intelligent musician. But for me, the thing that I love the most about Jacob's work is that I think the songs, it's not about even his talent for me. It's about the songs have so much heart. They're so beautiful. If you watch his Tiny Desk concert performance, the song "Make Me Cry," it's the first song he plays in his Tiny Desk concert. First thing I ever heard from him, I was like, this song is unbelievable. I love the results of his work, and I think he's very, very positive person, very creative, and I'd love to get in the studio with him, and I'm just so honored he's playing Second Sky.
I don't know if you were able to see the comments during the streaming with Jacob, but when you both started talking about Marion, you said you could introduce them, and on Instagram really exploded. It's always such a pleasure hearing you to talk about Marion in that way. What about Good Faith? Did you like Good Faith?
Oh my God! I mean, Good Faith was like a huge part of the last 5 years of my life in a way. Me and Marion are always sending music back and forth. We're really close. He's like always, I feel like I'm always the first person to hear his demos and vice versa. He always hears my new music before anyone else. You know, he was sending me Good Faith music from very, very early on, and I was helping to, I think, guide the project in some ways. Of course, it's all his mind and it's all his writing. But no, I love Good Faith, and it's like it's a masterpiece in my opinion. And the live show is unbelievable. I still haven't seen Good Faith live in person. I've only watched YouTube videos of it, but he's playing on my festival as well, Second Sky, this year. So I just can't wait. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, he's a genius.
I had to ask you, what's up with Shelter? Have you spoken to Marion about returning to the project? Because I had the opportunity to see you live on Austin City Limits 5 years ago. Oh,
thanks for seeing me.
Yeah, and it was amazing. So what about Shelter?
I don't know. I think we ended Shelter on such a high note. Like, we played the main stage of Coachella. It felt like we kind of closed the chapter to me. I always have these rules for myself that I set, no virtual self and Porter in the same set and all these kinds of things. I have all these rules, and sometimes I break them. So at the moment, no plans, it's like, I feel like the way that Shelter ended was really perfect. So sometimes a sequel is it's better left kind of unsaid, But who knows? I mean, we both love each other's music. We're always sending stuff back and forth. It might happen one day.
And what about, you came to Corona capital Mexico? What is your best memory from Mexican audience?
Oh my God, I just remember feeling like the audience in Mexico was so knowledgeable and passionate, and I felt especially the first 4 rows of people at Corona Capital was man, I need to come to Mexico so much more often. I feel so much passion and excitement, and yeah, I've been thinking about it so much recently. I can't wait to go back to Mexico. I feel like I didn't go enough before COVID-19, and with Nurture and everything coming out now, I want to see the whole world, and yeah, I really want to see my audience in Mexico again, very badly.
The news of the separation of Daft Punk, I know it was very, very heavy and sad. But it caught my attention that a lot of people start making images about Marion and you together, saying that you could take that place of an icon, So yeah. do you think about that?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anybody could ever do Daft Punk better than Tomas and Guy-Manuel. It's like I've tried to make music that feels like discovery before, and it's cool, but it feels like a pale imitation. It feels like an imitation, and I think the thing that made Daft Punk so great was that with each album, they really committed to a new idea, like going from Homework to Discovery to Human After All to Random Access Memories. Each one feels like its own universe, and it's because they have vision. They're true artists, so I don't think anyone can replace them. And you know, I'm sure there are artists that Thomas and Guy-Manuel looked up to that who are their heroes, and they could not replace them. You know, everyone just has to be themselves and do things to the best of their ability. But yeah, it was very sad to hear about Daft Punk splitting up. It felt strange to me. It felt like it was out of nowhere, like releasing nothing for 7 years and then announcing a breakup felt so strange to me. But I trust them and I trust their judgment. And if it's the decision that they felt was necessary, then as somebody who looks up to them and respects them, I just have to say, okay, you know.
Okay. Do you remember what were your first musical obsessions? Which artists do you remember getting obsessed with when you first started with music, or even before that?
The first song I ever loved was 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. That shit slaps. Still great. I remember I was like 12 years old or 11 years old, and I heard it on the radio for the first time, and it was like, it felt like the first time music caught my attention. Like before then, it was like music was background noise to me, and then I heard that and I was like, oh. And like I think the tone of that song, the beautiful, suspended, hopeful tone of that song, I feel like you can still feel it in a lot of my music today. And after that, I really loved Avril Lavigne, but also it was around that time that my older brother brought home a copy of Dance Dance Revolution for the PlayStation, and it was my first time hearing like electronic music. I got really obsessed with some of the artists from that game, DJ Taka, Naoki Maeda. After that, I remember I would go on like LimeWire, Kazaa, whatever music piracy sites, and I would just type like techno. I just type like electronic music, and that's how I found Daft Punk. From there, it's like game over. I was so obsessed. Like I heard Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. It was like my favorite thing I ever heard. So yeah, it's yeah. So I think my first true musical obsession would be Daft Punk, actually. So I really anchored on that.
Well, Paul, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it to talk to you. I'm a huge fan of Mexico City, and really hope to see you soon here.
Thanks so much for the time. Thanks for your thoughtful questions, and thanks for seeing me in Austin city limits. And yeah,
hope to see you.
Let's talk again. Thank you very much.